Hey y'all, thanks so much for tuning in from wherever you are. I'm KianaFitz, and I'm here with someone that I've been aware of for at least a decade, if not longer. And she actually used to release music under the moniker Dream Koala, and I became an instant fan. Now she's creating under her real name, Yndi, and she's just dropped a brand new album, Memoria. So before we dive into this truly stunning work of art, I'd love to get to know you better. So, in your own words, who are you?
Well, that's a big question, short and big question.
Yes.
Well, I'm an artist, like a musician. I basically I'm a composer, producer, and singer,
Mhm.
and songwriter too. I would like to use the word poet, but it's really like it's a complicated word, so I will stick to songwriter and
Yeah.
composer.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so where are you from and where are you based?
So I live in Paris, France. That's where I was born.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I worked my album actually, I wrote it a little bit in the south of France also, like in Provence, which is a region in the south of France.
Hmm.
And so my album is basically I've been working between Paris and South,
Hmm.
back and forth. Yeah,
Yeah, got it. Okay. And
that's it.
if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
Well, I just turned 30 now. So
Oh,
when you
well,
said like
happy
you've
30s.
been so thank you. So when you said you was listening for like a decade, like that's like basically true. I always feel like I'm just starting making music, but actually it has been
Yeah,
quite a while. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but
it's been a while, yeah.
it goes fast. It goes really fast.
Yeah. So, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about how long you've been making music. When did you first start making music?
So that's I come from a an artist family. So music has always been around. Like my parents make music, like and you know, like my parents are Brazilian, so in a Brazilian house there is always music all the time anyway. So I feel like I've been born into it. But I really started kind of like lately around my 15 years old. I really started to like um starting to play guitar and writing my own music. Like what was out wasn't enough. Like I felt the need to create something, like to create music, and that was kind of late because at first I wanted to draw and I wanted to be an artist, but not around music. It
Hmm.
came really lately.
Hmm.
And so I started with a band. I had a like a metal band with my friends first,
Mm.
and then I moved toward more electronic music and hip hop and electronic music, and I started producing as a Dream Koala, as you said earlier. That was like my first moniker,
Hmm.
and then I produced for other artists, and I made like music more toward that type. And then a few years ago, I moved away from kind of more my producer side, and I started writing in French, and yeah, focusing on more personal work and something that was I felt how would I say that? More focusing on like instrumentation and arrangement. I don't know if you say that in English.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
absolutely. Yes.
Arrangement, yeah, that's it. And you know, less around like beat making and producing and you know, spending time like on the computer and synthesizers. I wanted to simplify my work, and so that's the hardest thing to do, basically. So the
Yeah.
simpler is your material and the more difficult it is to work it around.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's life in general.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same with music.
Yes. Okay, cool. So you mentioned it a bit, the kind of background and environment that you grew up in, but why do you think you were encouraged and pushed into the direction that you went into?
Hmm. Well, that's honestly, I have no idea because I feel like it's always, you know, that's what I feel is interesting with art is like you think you have an idea at one point of time, but you never know when it started. You know, like something maybe you have an I wrote a song, I write a song today, but maybe it's pieces, you know, it's 10 years ago, something happened, or I watched a movie and there was one instrument in that movie and it struck me, and then it takes years, and then it's like a geology. You know, you have like
Yeah.
different stratums, and sometimes it comes up, but you never know when was the first point.
Mhm.
So it would be difficult to know what really led me that way. And I like to not really think about it and kind
Yeah.
of just let the flow. And but I'm sure that being like having like Brazilian music has had a huge impact on me, that's for sure, like because that's what my parents, my family listen to.
Mhm.
and um and so I feel like it's really part of who I am and like the way I make music.
Mhm.
But I never really wanted to make like Brazilian music or to stick to the traditional or to stick to something that's, has been done before. I always try to take this as a heritage, but I don't really want to respect it that much, so.
Mhm.
And also I feel like being born in France has a big impact also because there is a big tradition of French composers that I really feel are part also of my DNA, like early 20th centuries
Mhm.
composers also a lot, like Debussy, Ravel, all that tradition.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I feel like I'm a weird mixture of both of those things.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. Thank
Especially on this album, yes. Especially on Memoria, like this last album, I feel.
Yes, definitely, and I will get to that. But, I wanna ask a couple more questions, and then we'll dive into your work. So you have a very, very solid foundation from which you create. Like, you compose, you sing, you're arranging, you're doing so much. So how do you think your creativity in one area impacts another?
That's really, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I feel like, okay, that's I have to kind of go on circular way and then I go back to that
Yes.
question. When I start creating, like a lot of my experimentation comes from like copying a lot. Like when I hear something and I like, I kind of want to, open it up and kind of understand and try to see what was the way the artist, went through to create that.
Mhm.
So with music, when I was we talked about hip hop before.
Yeah.
I was a massive like rap and hip hop head when I was in high school, and so I was listening to those things, and I was like, okay, how is it made? So I kind of tried to copy, and I ended up producing, and sampling and recording and other stuff. And then I listened to other music, and I was like, okay, how does in that piece how does it work? Why the harp and the flutes and all those things work together? And so I tried to copy it, and then it kind of grew my way of working on a different way.
Yeah.
So I always try to follow up my curiosity, and it ends up nourishing my crafts.
Yeah.
So that's to answer to your question. I feel like um, uh, through the years, I'm not like I feel like I see myself not as a specialist,
Mhm.
like I could not be only an arranger and only a guitarist or only a singer. I feel like I can do a little bit of everything,
Mhm.
which is maybe not the best way if you want to be excellent at something, you know.
Sure.
But I know that I have a special insight on, when I talk with other arrangers, I have a special insight on that because I've been producing with synthesizers before and I've been writing songs before. So I know that making a little bit of everything makes me see from different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I feel like it has been it's kind of like a journey. And
Mm.
so I ended up because I used to kind of really compare myself a lot when I was younger to like, musicians who are like super good at their instruments, or someone had a super good at singing or super good at that, and they only do this thing. So they
Mhm.
are like great, it's like great craftsmanship. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I can play that. Oh, I can play, but I never committed to one thing. So
Yeah.
I just understood that I'm not that type of person. I feel like I'm more into being curious and mixing things around, and it's less about performance. It's more about like just like building new things and, as I say, new foundations.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So what else do you do creatively for fun, otherwise? Like, how do you fill your days?
Well, my days are sometimes really messy. Like I don't have a really good flow, but that's sure that I really take a lot of inspiration from like cinema. Like my album is named Memoria, and it's the name comes from a movie,
Mhm,
from a Thailandese movie, Thai movie. I don't know how you
mhm.
say it in English.
Yes.
From Apichet Panvera Cool, which struck me really deeply.
Mhm,
So and literature a lot also, and poetry a lot, and so I try to, as I say, like I make music, but I try to do my best to not have only musical influences and impressions. Like I really try to take from painting and poet and poems and movies and music is just the way I it's my material,
mhm,
but I try to have the more influence I can. So yeah, my days can be so that I wake up, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna work on that, and then I just don't do that. I just go out and I go to the museum and I go eat some pastries, and
mhm,
and that's not how I planned it. And then another day, I just like make music and but I felt like more and more I've working on my own has been more and more difficult. Like
mhm.
I feel like I really need it needs to be led by something more like a friendship or how do you say that something that is more une rencontre we say in French, like when you meet someone
Mhm.
and it's like two souls meet, and I
Oh,
feel like I
like
need that.
kismet. Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I need that. I feel like more and more I need this thing to fuel and I need to write thinking about the musician or write it has to be more with someone else. And because before I worked a lot on my own, like on my computer and on my thing, and I felt like external voices was like confusing me a lot. Like I needed to be really alone,
Mhm,
and with time it's almost impossible for me to work like that anymore. Like I really
mhm,
need like to exchange my idea and to see how someone else like transforms it and then take it back and work on it. So yeah, more and more my day of work looks less and less like day of work and more
yeah,
like collaborative, creating moments and having like a collaborations with other artists.
mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk a bit more about Memoria, and then I want to ask you about We Can't Be Friends. So
Sure.
Memoria, yeah. So tell me about the film that you were just discussing that inspired it. Like, what was it that spoke to you, that inspired you? Like, tell me more about it.
Well, so this movie, well, first there was also this movie came out after lockdown in France. So
Mhm,
it's like almost one of the first like movies I've seen after when the cinemas reopened.
mhm,
And it was a moment, a really complicated moment in everyone's life, right?
yeah.
And one thing in this like this director's work in general, but this movie struck me is that I felt like the main character, was really moving through the screen and the space like a kind of antenna. Like,
Mm,
it felt like it wasn't a character with a lot of agency. It wasn't a character that was like talking a lot or acting a lot of doing, like changing the world around them. It was more like being passive and like hearing, touching, feeling things around them. And I feel like I don't know why, just seeing that really inspired me to write and make this album, which is really fragile. It's like the text, but it's in French, so it's
mhm,
complicated to translate and everything. But it's really about like small object, like small things, like really small events,
mhm,
like winds blowing and all of that. And the sounds also are really like, it's like acoustic instruments,
mhm,
and I try to work with silence also a little bit. So it's really like a fragile balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this movie inspired me that
Yeah.
it kind of opened, like it felt like it kind of opened my eyes, like and it made me more sensitive to things around me.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's why. And the name also, I feel it sounds really good, Memoria. So I was like, okay, that's the name I'm gonna take. And then I started writing after that.
Yeah. So, can you kind of walk me through how this album came together? Was it like all at once? Was it like a process over years? Like, what was it like?
So it was kind of a reaction to my first album. Like my first album, I spent like 4 or 5 years like having a bunch of different recordings and versions and stuff. And I wanted something like a workflow that was lighter for this one. Like I felt like I wanted how to say that, like evidence. I
Oh,
don't know
one
if you
more
say
time?
that in evidence.
Yeah,
Does it
evidence.
work in
Yes.
English? It's like when something, you see something and it just like it looks like it popped out of the ground, you know? It doesn't feel like someone made it. It's just like you
Yeah.
feel, yeah, that should be, this is how it should be, you know?
Mhm.
So I wanted something that was more of that, that type. And so I started working on the guitar for like the first year, mostly on the music part.
Mhm.
And then I met my friend who is a harpist. So I wrote part for the harp and guitar, and then a friend who is a flutist. So I was like, I wrote for the flute, and a friend that makes double bass. So I wrote for the double bass, you know. So it was more like
Yeah.
with my friends around. And so then we recorded the music. And
Mhm.
then I went back home and I listened to the recordings and I wrote the lyrics and I recorded the voice on the second part. So that was
Mhm.
kind of like a three, like three steps kind of,
Mhm.
until the album.
Mhm.
And and yeah, then when I wanted to, I didn't like, I wanted to have the recording to write. Like I felt like um I didn't find inspiration before to be able to just like listen to what we done and, you know, walk and take time and listen to it and just take inspiration from the sounds themselves.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's how it it came to be.
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked a little bit about it already, but your creative process, like I remember you saying it used to be very individual, like producing, beat making, solo mission. And now you're saying like you're collaborative, you're working with your friends and people that are coming into your life. So, what would you say was the moment where you decided that your creative process was going to look different?
Hmm. Well, that was I feel like it's difficult to say when, but I feel like I just it's like when something becomes a habit, you know. Like because when you work on your own, there's like one moment, I mean, it was for me, I know that people, it doesn't happen to them, but at one moment I felt like I was using it like like it was overused. No, do you say that?
Yeah.
Overused, yeah, you know, I don't know, I felt like I could not go deeper. And yeah, it's also, and I feel like it also came from my love for cinema also,
Mhm.
because watching movies and seeing movies being made and how they are made, you know, it's a really collaborative process.
Mhm.
And I was like, I think also I kind of wanted at one moment to kind of take this philosophy of work, this way of working,
Mhm.
and putting in my workflow too. You know, like the way a director makes a movie. You know, it's not like he's not alone in a room and making his movie. You know, he has to find
Right.
like people who like who who record the sounds and people who like actors and all of that.
Mhm.
And and I felt like this more, I felt the need for this more like human, you know, connection,
Mhm.
woman thing. And I feel so I spend like we spend so much more time on our computer nowadays than
Yeah.
when I started making music. You know, just in 10 years, like it really changed. Like there wasn't social media, it didn't wasn't a thing. I mean, there was
Yeah.
Facebook, but it's what not like today.
Yeah.
So I felt like, yeah, I wanted the more and more my life, like our lives kind of became more technological and things. Well, the more and more I wanted to create spaces where I could just make music without too much uh, technology and technique involved, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well, thank
feel
you.
sorry.
I said thank you. I really appreciate the
Oh yeah,
input.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yes. Okay. So I did want to hop over to We Can't Be Friends. So I think I heard the song right around the time it came out, and I was just like, wow, like this is
Okay,
so ethereal, so beautiful, so like enriching. It just felt like a really wonderful experience.
thank
So
you.
yeah, of course, thank you. But yeah, I was working for NPR at the time, and I featured
Okay.
a Dimension Sleeper as a Songs We Love or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, that was
so yes, so
thank you.
I wrote about it a bit in that article about We Can't Be Friends being sampled in the hip hop and R&B universe. So I really wanted to dig into the origins of the song and try to get an understanding of how you feel about the way that it's been flipped and interpolated and sampled and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So how did you create this song? Can you take me back to that moment?
So that's that's really fun because I never expected that song to have that impact, like on like music in general. Like that's really crazy.
Mhm,
It was basically I was living at my mom's place, so it was my room, right? And yeah, I was just I bought a SP404, so that's an old sampler. I don't know if you see that. Yeah, so that I just got it, and there was some it was like a sampler and an effects pedal. Like it was kind of a mix of both of it. So I was just playing around with it,
mhm,
and I made a loop just playing, just jamming around, and I wanted to just try the different reverbs that was on it. And
mhm,
so I made it and I exported it on my computer, and then I layered it, and I was like, okay, I think I could make a song out of it. So I just made it in a few hours, and I put it on SoundCloud. It wasn't like that's really like how it was born. It was really super super easy, super yeah, super simple. And also because I used to listen to a lot of post rock at the time, and
mhm,
also a lot of hip hop, and so I wanted to make something that had kind of a post rock kind of ethereal vibe,
mhm.
and that could be also a beat. So I kind of tried to do it, but it was really intuitions. Like I didn't intellectualize it as this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, then people starting to share it, and that's really something that I miss, because like SoundCloud used to be a platform where it was really about the music,
Yeah.
and people were really so like into music, and nobody knew like how you looked like, where you were from, like
Mhm.
you could listen to guys from Russia and someone from like Egypt and someone, and it was like there are so many people I used to listen at the time. I have no idea how they look like, and
Yeah.
not even the country that we're from.
Yeah.
And it was really about music and the comments and that stuff. And of course, it wasn't perfect. Like there was a lot of problems with like competitivity and comparing each other and all
Yeah.
those things. That's obviously there was also some problems,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was a great platform and a great time. I feel like to just experiment and being able, yeah, to have people in the US like, yeah, just people listening to my music everywhere, and I was just in my room like that was crazy.
Yeah. So do you
And
remember
then yeah, people started to sample it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So do you remember I know this was a long time ago, but what was inspiring you at the time that you created this song?
Mm,
Like sonically, spiritually, anything?
yeah, well, one thing is sure, I was a massive Flying Lotus fan. So I was, and also I feel like, yeah, it was a moment. It was kind of special because I kind of finished school, kind of. I
Mhm,
mean, I was still in school, but I didn't really care anymore. Like I knew I wanted to make music, and I knew I wanted to just do that all the time.
mhm.
And I don't know, I felt like I don't know, I feel like was it was like I wanted so much to like to people to listen to my music, but that I don't know, it feel like it kept a sparkle of that. It's weird, but I just really wanted to make that. And to be honest, it's difficult to remember at where I was at mentally at that moment because it was such a quick, like it was so fast, like it was
Yeah.
such a short moment.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was really a good time.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember how you felt after you uploaded it to SoundCloud and you started getting feedback? Like, how did you feel?
Well, I was like, yeah, it was crazy. I was like, okay, I made it now. It's okay. I'm gonna move out. I'm gonna, like when you I didn't honestly, I feel like I didn't really uh understood kind of,
Mhm.
like you're just like, oh yeah, there's that many people that listen to it, that many people that contact you, and that's, I guess that's, you're just in the flow. And I
Mhm.
just wanted to make more music, to be honest. Like I just was thinking about what was going next, because I think like that's how you work when you're an artist. Like you make something and then you're already like thinking about, next year or 2 years from here, you're not really in
Mhm.
the present.
Mhm.
And then I feel like that was when yeah, people like, like Doja
Yep.
and other people started, like Fabulous and Jeremiah started sampling it and all that,
Yeah.
I understood that, it really had like kind of impact. And also seeing people copying it, that was also weird. Like like seeing
Mm.
there was like other things, like, okay, I definitely heard also the influence that like differently from my sound, and that was really cool because I felt like, okay, it's like when you're an artist, the only thing that like another people copying you is the biggest like compliment you can have.
Yeah.
Like you can have like a good reviews, you can have other people saying it's fun and they listen to it, and that's great. But when you see people trying to reproduce what you do, like that's really when you feel like there is
You
like you
made it.
recognized. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's I feel like the best compliment. And also until today, like people will send me a message like, I was on a holiday and I fell in love and this was the music to my love story. Or people saying, yeah, like my brother is moving out of this country, and now I think of him because I've listened to that, and I really know that it's part of so many people's life.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's impressive, like really. I feel like
Absolutely.
I still didn't really totally understand what happened.
Yeah, it's one of those like magical moments that just kind of comes up and you're like, "Oh wow, this is happening to me this time.
Yeah.
Okay, great."
And
But
especially
yeah.
like through the years, like it was like, because first Jeremiah sampled it, I was like, okay, that's really cool. And then Doja Cat sampled it, and I was like, okay, that's really, really cool. And 3 years, there is new people who are taking their own way to sample it. So
Yeah.
it's it becomes like almost kind of a joke with my friends, like when someone they send me a mail like, oh, here's someone else, this guy, and thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy. I feel like it's because I've been listening to so much hip hop when I was younger, and
Mhm.
so I feel like I'm happy to kind of be like also part of, like even if I'm not in the US, I'm not like I live in Europe and stuff. I feel like I'm tiny bit of hip hop history, kind of. I've helped a
Yes.
little bit of it, even if it's like 0.0001%,
Yeah.
but it's there, Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's to make me happy a lot.
Yeah. Do you try to keep up with the songs that sample you? And also, is there an approval process on your end for these samples, or how does that work?
For the approval, you mean?
Or yeah, like
Uh,
are they legally sampling you?
oh yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, most of the time it has been done really. I mean, some people didn't ask for it, but we always find a compromise, like legally, you mean?
Mhm.
And but most of the time, yeah, it's people asking me, and what I enjoyed it is that, sometimes it's like the producer makes something, sample it, and the rapper hop on the beat, but they don't necessarily know what the sample. The rapper
Mhm.
doesn't really care about the sample or anything. And I
Mhm.
feel like every time happened to me, the rappers really like loved the song. Like they like Cash Page, for example. I know that she sampled it and really because she loves this song. It's not like her producer that came up with it and she was just like in the studio and it was short moments. It's like really like I listen to it, I like it, and I wanted to write and rap over it. And same with Doja, and same with like Mick Jenkins, and so I really felt like it's people who really like the song and want to rap on it. So and it's something that doesn't necessarily happen nowadays, like in rap, because everything is like so quick and it's like producers receive like big sample packs and they make a lot of it and then the rapper goes and in one day they make like 5 songs, like I mean in the US that's how it that was I was impressed when I just made a few sessions in the US and
Mhm.
I was like, okay, that's a whole other energy. Like that's crazy. Like people stay in the studio the whole day, they make like 5 tracks, 6 tracks in one day, then they go out and they go to another city, they do the same with another producer. And
Mhm.
yeah, here in Europe, it's everything is more slower and it takes more time and it's not like
Yeah.
that quick.
Yeah.
So so yeah, that's also another part I was happy to discover.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song that has, sampled "We Can't Be Friends," if you are open to sharing?
um I think Mick Jenkins is a great artist.
Yeah.
But somehow I feel like the cash page kind of grew on me a little bit. Like because
Ah, cool.
I felt like at first, like when she sent me, I liked it. I liked it, but I think I prefer some previous one was like, yeah, it's good and things. And then listening back, I felt like she kind of really, I mean, I feel like in a more like technical terms, she
Mhm.
really made a song out of it. Like she really like added it's like she added really something to it. And I think maybe that's why it's the most popular of those because it's really like half and half, I felt between my work and hers.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Any advice for anybody looking to sample it in the future?
Well, that would be, I don't know, honestly, like be creative. Really the only be creative. That's the only thing. Because yeah, sampling is always like it has been it's like the brickstone of hip hop, right? Like it's like it
Mhm.
has been like since there is hip hop, there is sampling. And so yeah, when you hear someone who samples something creatively, it's really the thing that is, I think, to me the most important. Like creative with the flow or creative with how you chop it up
Mhm.
and all those things. So yeah, that's I'm not a big sampler. Like as a producer, I make kind of everything myself, but
Mhm.
I'm really bad at sampling. I've made I think one of two beats sampling something, and it never was out because it was so bad. Like I'm not good. I'm really not good at that. It really takes talent just to sample like with a good ear. It's
Yeah.
like you listen to the track and you know that this second it's like okay, this is a good second. I'm going to take it and chop it up like like Kanye or like Timbaland or Jay
Yeah.
Dilla, all those guys. Like you see them work, it's like because people who don't like outside of hip hop, they're like, yeah, that's just stealing. They don't understand the art of like the craftsmanship of sampling of making a good sample. That's really hard.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, well, we're just about out of time, but I did want to give you a heads up about an artist named JP. I don't know if you've come across his
Yeah, I've heard.
single.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
contacted me. He contacted me. I mean, he contacted his lawyer contacted us because they made it the good way. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I
yeah.
was like, I just want to make sure you're aware. But before we go, is there anything else that you would like to say about Memoria, about any of your work in your career?
Yeah. Well, I feel like with there is well, I guess most of people will be listening will not necessarily speak French. So I'm always curious like how it sounds to people who don't understand because I spend so much time writing the text
Mhm.
and to me it's really French is a really hard language to sing and write, so
Mhm.
it takes a lot of time to really like understand it and write it down and stuff. So I always like I would really love to just hear it from the outside without understanding words, just
Mhm.
to know how people who don't speak French like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about that album. I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been also trying to, yeah, go. I feel like I've been like, this album also opened a new door for me to work with more like acoustic instruments and work on my arrangement techniques with
Mhm.
more instruments and all that. So yeah, they say it's always like a transformative job.
Yes,
Like,
definitely. Okay, well, I think we're about to get kicked out of this room, but I really appreciate your time.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a
Alrighty,
nice day.
and yeah, you too. Thank you so much.